Good afternoon, everyone. So I first discovered my love for mathematics when I was in high school. There was a teacher of mine whom we called Baba Mat. It meant father of mathematics. And he had this very passionate way of teaching us math. And I fell in love with it. I wasn't the very best or student in class, but I was one of the top students. So that was the first place I knew that math was something I really want to reckon with. So fast forward to post-high school, I tried to gain admission into the university for the petroleum engineering program, but I couldn't attain the required cutoff mark. At that time, one of the courses mostly sought after was petroleum engineering. As Nigeria, my country of origin, was and is still a big crude oil producing nation. So one needed to either be exceptionally brilliant or have some internal connections to get admitted to the course or any course for that matter. But then a mentor of mine who was then studying physics at the University of Ibadan, his name was Afolabi Ogunyemi. He advised me Afolabi Ogunkoya. He advised me to apply for the mathematics program then with the hope of crossing over to the engineering department in my year two. By default in Nigeria, the first degree is a 4-year course that includes a compulsory honors year. So, but then there was this man in my area who was relatively a wealthy man and quite well exposed. Well, what I thought. He asked me about my plans for further studies when he heard about my good results after high school. And I told him I was planning to go study mathematics. I remember what he said to me. He asked me very bluntly if I wanted to end up a poor school teacher, as that was the understanding of what most people believe that mathematics students would end up being. Thus, he advised that I consider one of the more lucrative courses, of course, for example, petroleum engineering. Nevertheless, I still went ahead to apply for the mathematics program at the University of Ibadan, and I got a lot of encouragement from some of the people around me, my main fan being my biological father, Mr. Felix Akinlotan, and especially two mentors of mine, that's Afolabi and Pastor Paul Ogundipe. They were really onto me and they were really supportive. Having come from a humble family, I wanted something better. And I was the first to have a university education in my family, as far as I know. But my parents were a stickler for education and they were willing to give it their all. With a lot of financial struggles, I eventually got into the University of Ibadan to study pure and applied mathematics. So in Ibadan, I was taught by some of the best mathematicians Nigeria and even Africa has ever produced. I mean, the likes of Professor Mrs. Olabisi Ogbebo, who was a motherly figure that made me realize that being successful, as a woman in mathematics was possible. And I was also taught by people like Professor Ikagore, Professor S.A. Lori, Ayola, Doctors Egwe, Praise Adeyemo, Arawamo, and many, many other people. They were really, really supportive. But then I was supposed to be doing applied maths, but even the applied maths was very theoretical because I had no exposure to computer programming or any form of coding whatsoever, not even with the use of spreadsheets. So, but then the words of that man that asked me if I wanted to end up being a poor school teacher was still at the back of my mind. But then, so that kind of made me very resolute that I wasn't going to end up being a poor math teacher. So in my third year at the University of Ibadan, we went for a national mathematics competition in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, and I came third nationwide. So this qualified me as a participant in the international maths competition that was to be held in Bulgaria that year. However, we couldn't go. I think they didn't give us a visa, maybe because we're from Nigeria or whatever. I don't really know. But then that whetted my appetite for further mathematics studies outside the country. Now, post-graduation from the university, when I was doing a compulsory 1-year national service for the country for all graduates, I got a fully funded scholarship to go for a postgraduate diploma in mathematical sciences at the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences in South Africa. AIMS is a center of excellence where they unpick bright students from all over Africa for an intensive 11-month program in mathematical sciences. And we were taught by some of the best hands in the world in mathematical sciences. I mean, the likes of Professor Philip Miney, Professor Wilson Lamb, Professor Collins Please, and many other people. It was there I learned to do scientific computing, and many other relevant skills were added to me, such as mathematical problem solving, the use of LaTeX, and many other things. So it was at AIMS that I discovered myself. That was where I realized that what I really want is academia in mathematics. And I saw that I could actually marry my love for biology and mathematics. So for the research component of that study, I used DNA data to map genetic ancestry of some world populations, and I was affiliated to the University of Cape Town. At this time, I didn't realize I was already into data science, as it is called now. So post-AIMS, I got another fully funded scholarship for my master's by researching mathematical sciences at Stellenbosch University. There, I developed mathematical models in HIV-related cancers in collaboration with a clinical study at the Stellenbosch University that was spearheaded by one Professor Akinlotan. He's now the Commissioner for Health in Lagos State, Nigeria. So this project also really defined my course in academia, and I realized that I could use my knowledge on projects that could positively influence governmental health policies. Fast forward to 2013, I came to Australia for my PhD, where I developed mathematical models of dynamics of chlamydia trachomatis within host dynamics. Chlamydia is an STD. And I had a really great team of supervisors, Professor Dan Mallet, Dr. Robin Araujo, Professor Tim Moroney. They were really supportive. And Robin was someone that really challenged me. Gosh, she was so brilliant. So post-PhD in 2018, I got a job at the Queensland Institute of Medical Research as a mathematician, where we did some malaria study. I was the mathematician working on the work, and I used real clinical data. Still, I didn't know I was a data scientist. And fast forward to 2020, COVID happened to everyone. I didn't have a job for a while. And then I got a job at the Department of Civil Engineering. I came back to QUT, where I worked, used statistical models to model road crash data for the Queensland transport and main roads. After this, in late 2021, I got a third postdoc opportunity with Dr. Matthew Adams, and this was my first introduction to mathematical ecology. I worked on a value of information analysis project where we developed new metrics for risk-averse managers. And for those who don't know, value of information is a method for quantifying the value of collecting more information before that information is collected. So it's for use in things like conservation decision-making or systematic conservation planning. This project led me to my current postdoc job, where I'm using this same value of information analysis to develop tools that can facilitate optimal conservation decisions and allocation of resources for Antarctica-related projects. It's a project funded by the ARC's Securing Antarctica's Environmental Future. And I work with a really brilliant team, very, very supportive team, headed by Associate Professor Kate Elmstead. And I also work with Dr. Matthew Adams. I work closely with the Australian Antarctic Division also, especially Dr. Justin Shaw and many other people on the team. So last year, in order to convince myself that I was a data scientist, I took a graduate certificate degree in data science at the University of Newcastle, where I graduated in flying colors. So now I'm convinced that I'm doing data science, that I've been doing data science all along. So that's my brief story for my research journey. But when it comes to equity, diversity, and inclusion in data science or STEM in general, I believe these issues are increasingly being addressed, and I think that's good news, but I think there's room for more. As Sahani and Isabel rightly highlighted, catching them young is really important. We need to expand our outreaches to the younger ones. By this, I mean primary and high school students. I used to be involved in the Mathematicians in School program and the Wonder of Science School outreaches. They're really, really good. I'm aware QT also has similar schemes, and I think we should do more so that students are better enlightened that they, so they don't end up being told by that man told me that, as that man told me that they could end up being poor school teachers. By the way, school teachers aren't poor people anyway, at least here in Australia. I also think there should be intentional mentoring for young women in STEM. I know this happens in many places, but we can do more. It also helps to have role models. Professor Karimengasin, in particular, is someone that makes me keep raising the bar for myself, to be honest. She's a woman. And I tell myself that if she can have a family and is soaring high, then I can do it too. So a little wonder I like to stick close to her office, even though that's not where my official office is. And lastly, one of the challenges I've seen as a woman in data science and STEM in general is that raising family in academia can be exhausting and sometimes limiting. I mean, I'm married, I've got 3 children. And for example, sometimes going to conferences or network events require a lot of planning, resources like getting a nanny to help with the things I have to do when I'm around. And sometimes going to some of these events are impossible. But then QUTs are ever doing really, really well as they have this kind of support, which I have been enjoying for a while. They provide additional support for women who have people to care for when they're away at work-related events. I think institutions should do more of this. I mean, these are parts that are not spoken of well enough. Many women have dropped out of academia or they've reduced their workload and consequently their research outputs when they start raising a family. So I hope with us looking into some of these things, it should be more encouraging for women to go into data science. Thank you.